Here are 10 things I wish I knew going into management. Thinking in retrospect right now, I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? But that's why I'm making this video. If you are just starting out in management or some form of supervisory role, or you're considering taking a management position, this video is for you. And the 10 things I'm going to talk about are a combination of expectations that I had of myself, expectations that I had of other people, and just generally tools and skills that I should have armed myself with going into management. And I'm not saying armed like I was going in there to fight a war, but just how prepared I should have been, or I wish the things that I wish people could have told me going into management. If this is you, you don't want to miss this. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Welcome to another episode on the Growth Leadership Cafe. My name is Adesawa and I am your lovely host who shows up here every week. And if this is your first time coming across my YouTube channel, you're very welcome. It means that you're in search for tips and tricks on how to build your capacity as a leader. So you're in the right space. For my avid subscribers, thank you so much for sticking with me through this. If you're not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would say do so right now so you get a notification every time I post a video, which is every week, Tuesday, 8 o'clock Central Time. All right, so let's get right into it. Today, I am speaking about the 10 things I wish I knew or I wish people had told me going into management. And they're lessons, they are valuable tools that I'm glad that I have had the opportunity of learning and improving and just building my capacity. And I'm doing this for those who are coming behind me and considering these roles and just things that you should keep in mind going into management. Okay, so the first thing is I should have had a mentor. And people might gloss over this and think, oh, it's not important. You can just figure things out. But there's something that can be said for having someone on your corner who has experienced the things that you're just beginning to get into and can kind of show you the lay of the land. Like a tour guide, essentially. They know the ins and outs of the space and they can essentially give you, direction as to how to go about things. So you're not making colossal mistakes that might even cost you certain things or people or positions in your career path, right? So, and having a mentor is not necessarily like going up to someone and say, hey, would you be my mentor? As if you're asking someone on a date, but it's more so, who is that person for you when you think about leadership and management? Who is that person for you that kind of sticks out of the crowd and you're just naturally drawn to that person and you admire how they conduct themselves, how they lead your teams, and how they, accomplish whatever goals that they work towards. Like, who is that person for you? Who's that person that at the top of your mind comes to your mind, essentially? Okay. And if you don't feel comfortable, approaching them and saying, hey, I want you to be my mentor, you can also just start to pay attention to them more and consider what are the things, how do they do things, and thinking about what you could also take under your tool belt and try out and see what sticks for you. So you want to start observing that person's attitude, how they go about things, the techniques that they use, and try it out for yourself. Or better still, you can just also have a mentor, like approaching them and saying, I really admire you and I'd like you to be that person that can be my go-to person and can coach me on my management journey. And if they say yes, then that's great, because that person can also be a safe person for you, a trusted adult that you can always talk to when it comes to work related stuff, work related team management, or and even just that upward mobility in your career path, and kind of showing you what next to do, and going after opportunities that come your way. Okay, so whether that person is a mentor or getting an actual leadership coach, that is super, super amazing to have on your corner and would save you a ton of heartache in down the line. The second thing I should have had done more of going into management was delegating more. And when I say delegating, I know especially for a newbie manager or supervisor, you want to demonstrate that you're deserving of this position. You want to show that you're hardworking, and you're probably saying yes to a lot of requests, and people throwing different tasks as you here and there, and you're saying, okay, sure, I can do this, especially if it's something that you can do. You will probably say yes to that. But again, it gets to a point where, like, how do you start to manage all of those competing priorities? How do you're not just responsible for yourself, you're responsible for a team. So you have to make sure that your team is on top of things. You also have to make sure you're on top of the things that you are responsible for. So how do you manage and balance all of that without losing all of the strands on your head? So with that said, you have a team, you're surrounded by a team of people who are great at certain things. And just because something is delegated to you doesn't mean that you always have to be the one to do it. So you can always ask for help, ask your team for help. Who is that person in your team who does different things really well, whatever that is. Like, give it to that person, like, hey, we have this thing to get done. Can you help me out with this, or can you help out with this? And just spread the workload out. As much as you are considering the workload and priorities for each of your team members in giving out tasks, you also want to figure out what your own workload is, right? And so if that means giving that to other people, and it's not a way of just passing work over and not doing anything because you're now the manager. No, it's about really figuring out what needs to you factor in it and what doesn't. Okay, and again, this is not just about passing work over to people. It's also a way for you to build the capacity of your team, that your team can do some of the things that you as well can do, or you are responsible for. Because what if you're sick? And what if you go on vacation and you're not constantly worrying that, oh my God, the team cannot function without you? Your team will not suffer. Your project goals will not suffer, or your business outcomes will not suffer, because your team knows what to do. They've been prepared for it. You want to get to a point where your team is self-organizing, can function even if you're not physically there to say, you go do this, you go do that. But naturally, they're going to know what to do because you've given them that opportunity to be able to build certain skills. And so when you go on vacation, you're sipping your margaritas at peace in your heart, because you know that things are not going to go colossally wrong. Is that even a word? But things are not going to go up in flames because you're not there to de-escalate things or control things. Okay, and yeah, you're not a controller. So you want to make sure that you're giving everyone an opportunity to build their skill as well, because you want to raise leaders in your team. Like, when you win, the team wins. When your team wins, you win. It is mutually beneficial. So make sure that you're not hoarding things, or you want to be the only one who's responsible for certain things so that you're the one who knows how to do certain things because you want to feel needed. Trust me, if something happens to you tomorrow, you will be replaced like this. Okay, there's no person that is indispensable, or an organization cannot live without. Okay, so please endeavor, try your best to build the capacity of the people around you, because your team would be very grateful for that. Even in your absence, your team will be able to function without you. And trust me, that's a good thing. Okay, it's a good thing. That's something that I wish I did more of, because I was taking on so much, and I started to burn out because it was impacting me in other areas of my life. So I was taking work home. I was spending so much late hours at work, just working overtime. I was just constantly in that work mode because I wanted to deliver. But those are things that I could have as well asked for help in and given to other people to get done as well. The third thing I should have done more of is not focusing on the little things. And by little things, I mean not focusing on people's methods or how they're doing things. Like, at the end of the day, you want to focus on the bigger outcomes. What is the goal that you're working towards? what's this person's responsibility? You've given them a task, you've explained what the task entails, you've agreed on a timeline, and so however they get that done is entirely up to them. You don't want to tell people what to do, how to do things, how to, like, it's very easy to slip into that process of being a micromanager and, telling people, oh, you do this way because this is how I do it, or this is the method that we use here. We're all different people from different backgrounds. We can accomplish the same outcomes or even better with different approaches, right? Just because I do something in a particular way and particular method doesn't mean that person B has to do the same thing and use the same methods. We can do different things or use different methods and still accomplish the same outcome. Okay, so, and it kind of dampens creativity. Like, allow people use their brains. Don't tell people how to do things, because you got into that position because you probably are great at your technical skills. So let's say you're an engineer, you are great at your job, and so they have offered you this lead engineer position. So technically you're good at that thing, right? But the people who you are now leading, like, give them a chance to do things their way as well, as long as they're meeting the outcomes, meeting the deadlines. Like, give out the task, make yourself available for questions when they need clarification, and then just get out of the way. Okay, however people choose to do their jobs when they're doing it, it's really not up to you, or it should not concern you. The fourth thing I should have done more of is documenting verbal conversations or agreements. And this is particularly with your superiors, because many things get said in passing, or, in random places where, it was agreed on and you've gone ahead and done that thing, and later on it comes up and you're like, well, who approved this? And you're like, well, is this person, for example, say you have a project that you're working on, and for some reason you happen to, maybe on your break, just go into the lunchroom and you meet, say, Darren, who's your supervisor, and you guys are just having like conversation, and it kind of evolved into having a conversation about the project, and you guys agreed on something at that point. So what you should do in that situation is, first of all, if you can stop not talking about work during your lunch break, great, because again, not everyone who should be maybe looped into that conversation is present. Okay, so you don't want to be making decisions unanimously on behalf of everybody. But secondly, even if your superior is also the one, helps in decision making as well. So if for any reason that's unavoidable and it comes up and you guys agree to something, when you get back to your office, write in an email, thank you, Darren, for speaking with me today. I know that was kind of impromptu, but I'm glad we had this conversation. So just to make sure if everyone is kept in the loop, this is what was discussed, and this is what we agreed on will be the next steps. So, and you copy whoever needs to be in that email. So everyone's looped in. It helps you keep yourself accountable. It helps you keep Darren accountable, and it cues everyone in on what was discussed and what the next steps are. So as a result of that, you have documented this, there's a record of it, and if for any reason something comes up in the future and you're like, well, who authorized this, who approved this, there's an email thread about that. Okay, and it's not a matter of he said, she said, and that also makes the job of upper management much easier, especially when the issue has exacerbated to a point where some kind of punitive or disciplinary action needs to be taken, and they're like, Darren at that point is like looking at you puzzled, like, well, I didn't say this. When did we have this conversation? Right? But you know that you guys had that conversation, but how do you prove that you had the conversation if it wasn't documented anywhere, or at least a third party to verify that this was actually discussed, right? So it helps keep everyone accountable and keeps you out of trouble. Okay, this leads me to my fifth point, which is also documenting conflict. And first of all, if maybe for some reason you're having conflict with someone and you're having a verbal conversation and it's beginning to escalate, if you can find a way to de-escalate that situation and just get out of it, great. But if it's beginning to go out of control, find someone, who can be there to witness that. And after that is done, make sure you document that in an email, indicate who were the witnesses to that event, and send it to whoever needs to receive that information. Even if this event happened in a neutral environment, maybe outside of the office, and it happens, whoever is there, maybe you are at a function and something happens, who were the witnesses? Maybe it's someone from some other organization. Whoever it is, make sure you document that in an email. And if for any reason you want to correct someone's behavior, or someone on your team has done something and you want to kind of talk to them about what's going on, and kind of letting them know that you'd like, that not to happen again. First of all, if you have upper management, always make sure that you're consulting with those who are directly above you, because you might have thoughts. They might also have ideas of maybe if that's a pattern, or ideas on how you guys can go about approaching that staff and having that conversation. So first of all, if you have upper management, call them and just say, hey, I just wanted to loop you in, this just happened, I'd like to talk to Cynthia about this maybe tomorrow when things have dialed down a little bit, but I just wanted you to know that this is what I'm going to do. Because if things escalate again, Cynthia or whoever your direct supervisor is can also speak for you and say, you know what, I was actually aware when this happened, and so again, it helps you cover your bases. And so for me, yeah, it was just interesting situations that I feel like if someone had told me about some of these things, I would have been so appreciative and may have gone about certain things differently than I did. Okay. But again, with this point is making sure there's a witness to whatever situation is going on, and if that's unavoidable, or if it's not possible, make sure that you are documenting immediately after that incident. Okay, so and there is a record of it when it happened, and it doesn't always mean that management might take any action right away, but at least it's on record, it's on file, it's somewhere that if it happens again, they know that, okay, this isn't just a one-off situation, this is probably a pattern with this person, and at that point they might be more inclined to act on it at that time. But it also helps management in coming to a decision that doesn't feel like there is an appearance of them taking one person's word over another. Okay, so just make sure that you're covering your bases. The sixth thing I should have done more of is expressing when I didn't know something. Again, as a newbie manager, it's there's a lot of unspoken expectations that are projected on leaders, and so you don't want to appear inadequate or incompetent or not good enough or not even deserving of the position. And so even when you don't know something, you are quiet, and you act like, oh, you know it, because yeah, you are the leader. People just expect that you should know these things, right? But no, especially when it comes to leadership and management, you don't know everything. Nobody knows everything, but there are people ahead of you who have the more lived experience than you do. Okay, so if there's maybe you're working on a project and there's an aspect of it that is part of your task and you don't know how to go about it, please don't feel ashamed to say, you know what, I don't know. I'm sure your management or your immediate supervisor will be very appreciative that you felt safe enough to come to them and say, hey, I don't know how to do this, but show me how and I'll get it done. Okay, so it's not a matter of you rejecting work because you don't know, but you're open to learning, because that's where the growth happens, right? It's in those unique spots of new information. You're in a new terrain where you're trying to figure things out. That's how you really build your capacity. So don't be ashamed or afraid to say when you don't know. And for me, I was quiet. Thank God for Google and YouTube and all of that. You can kind of Google things and figure out how to do it. But again, especially when it's something that maybe is related to how to do things in your specific work environment, there are people who understand that work environment and can kind of give you direction. And even if they don't have the answers for you, they may also be able to point you in the direction of where you can get that help. Okay, so please don't feel like you can't express when you don't know something. I would rather you say, I don't know, and get help than acting like you know and going to make a fool of yourself or making a colossal mistake that has much severe impacts on not just you, but your team and, whatever business outcomes that you're working towards. Okay. The seventh thing I should have done more of is not expecting my team members to just trust me and respect me right away. Especially as a new leader, you're in that very interesting situation where you want to feel liked, you want to feel like you're part of the team, and people you're able to connect with people, but trust takes time, right? And that comes as a result of relationship and rapport and connection and really being genuinely interested in the people that are in your work environment, right? Or on your team. So they're not going to trust you right away. Same way, you start, for example, you start dating someone, for example, maybe you go on a first date and it works out really well. You go on a second date, even amazing, you want to spend more time together, right? But if you're not putting in that effort and you're just coming and say, oh, you got this to do and you got that to do and you got this to do, you go do this and you go do that, people are like, okay, sure, I guess it's our job. But like that personability, is not even a word, but that ability to connect with people at a personal level and find out, okay, what do you do here? So like even in your first couple days or first month with your team, what do you do? Especially if there is already an established team and you are the person who's new to the team. So even if you're a manager or supervisor, but you're the person who's new, you are the newbie in that space. So of course you gotta do a bit of work to get into the team and get a feel of how the team kind of functions, right? Those people already have a rapport with each other. So it's you who needs to make a little bit more effort to establish relationship, get to know your team, and even maybe in your first couple days, I will highly recommend that you bring each team member into your office or whatever neutral environment in your workspace and just introduce yourself. But that space is really for you to get to know them and not you chatting about how awesome and fantastic you are. But obviously, as you're getting to know them, allow them get to know you as well. Relationship is a two-way street. So you want to make sure that you are sharing as much as you're listening. Okay. For some people, it might take them a couple days just to connect with you. For some other people, it might take them a month or a couple months. Some people need a little nudge to get to know them. But you might just be pleasantly surprised that you guys have mutual connections or you guys have mutual interests. Find out what they do outside of work. What do they enjoy doing on weekends? What's their family like? What are their hobbies? So like get to know those things and you might just find that you guys have mutual interests in common and that's how you start to build connection, right? So for me, I was jumping ahead of myself. I'm like, oh my God, like why these people are going out, no one's inviting me, why is this happening? Or, on the flip side too, like you're seen as that authority figure, right? So they don't necessarily feel comfortable with you because you're like that person who's above them. So of course they don't feel comfortable maybe saying certain things or making types of jokes around you, and it takes you to make that effort to get to know them. So even if don't be that boss who kind of sits in their office and doesn't connect with the team. Like if it's lunchtime, if everyone else is maybe going out for lunch, go with them. If people are in the lunchroom, go hang out there and talk to them and get to know them, because it's from those small talk that's how you start to build connection and rapport that would metamorphose into something that helps your team bond, helps you connect well with your team, and just help for overall team cohesiveness and working towards your outcomes. So be patient with the process. The eighth thing I should have done more of, or I should have just known, or I wish someone had told me, was not setting healthy boundaries from the beginning. So again, as a new leader, you want to make yourself available, accessible, but where do you then draw the line between balancing or separating work from home in a way that your home life, your personal life doesn't begin to suffer because you're trying to just appear competent and good enough and deserving of the position and great at what you do. And so, you're just constantly busy, you're constantly in work mode, and you don't know how to stop working. Okay. And if you haven't, I talked about this in another video. So if you are struggling with separating work from home and creating boundaries between for you and your team, and also just creating boundaries between work and your personal life, you want to watch that video as well. I go into greater detail there, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to say things like having your work email on your phone and you're constantly getting that notification as emails come in, or you're telling your team, oh, call me whenever you have questions. Yes, you want to make sure that you're accessible to your team, but you want to do that within parameters. Okay, so maybe instead of saying, okay, that you work say at 9 to 5 o'clock schedule, but you would say, let your team know, or call me whenever you need anything. And especially in organizations where people work varying schedules, and maybe your schedule is different from that of your team. Some people might be working later in the evenings, some people work super early in the morning, depending on what that looks like for you, your organization. You want to kind of establish that, okay, you know what, call me if you have any questions, but make sure that I'm usually available between 9 o'clock and 5 p.m. So you're really emphasizing that you're open to consultation, you're open for questions during your work schedule, which is 9 to 5. And if you're noticing that people are crossing those boundaries, it's just a matter of communicating and, reinforcing that. Just because you say something once doesn't mean it sticks. So people might need a couple reminders here and there, and sometimes it comes from a good place. They want to keep you in the loop, so they're calling you, hey, this just came up, I just wanted to let you know, right? But you can just let that person know, thank you for always keeping me in the loop, I really appreciate it. If it's anything after 5 o'clock, please just document it in an email, or we can chat in the morning. So that way you're kind of reminding them that, yes, I appreciate it, I don't want you to stop doing this, but just doing that within the parameters that you provide. And so whatever boundaries that you're setting for yourself, make sure that you are also extending that to other people. So respecting other people's boundaries, not calling your team when they're off the clock, just because you're working, or not expecting your team members to respond to an email just because you are working overtime, or you're working maybe after work and they are off the clock, and expecting them that, well, I sent you an email at this time, why didn't you respond? Well, they're not on the clock, so please make sure that you're not projecting what you don't want others to do to you. If you're noticing that you are taking work home constantly, you are staying at work even when you're clocked out, or you technically should be clocked out and going home, you want to be mindful of that as well. If it's something that is not due that day, then pause it to the following day. All right, so don't feel the need to stay at work because, oh my god, you want to perform and show that, oh, you got this thing done, you did it really fast, like no. Okay, they say the reward for good work is more work. Okay, people just want to put more things on you. Okay, so even when a boss comes to you and say, hey, come, could you help me out with this, you can, for sure, if it's something that you're able to do, you can say yes, but just let them know, I do have X, Y, and Z things to get done as well. Is it okay if I get this to you, say, in the next couple days? Or ask them, like, how urgent is this for you, and spread your tasks out properly, so that you're not constantly in that work mode. Something, especially in the pandemic period, that I've had to do is also, again, like, on my personal devices, say like group chats, team group chats, I don't have it on my cell phone, or on even like platforms I already use for my personal stuff. So for example, WhatsApp, I will not have like a work WhatsApp group on my phone, just because I don't even want WhatsApp groups work related stuff on my WhatsApp, because that's for my friends and family. And so even if you're off the clock and people are working, you're constantly getting that notification, and you're feeling more inclined to want to click on it, even if you've not been personally contacted about something, but because you're seeing those notifications and you're seeing the messages come in, you feel the need to click on it and check out what's going on. The ninth thing I wish someone had told me going in is how to manage my time. Again, as a new person going in, you're not just thinking for yourself anymore, you're thinking for a team of people, right? And so if you are not very good at organizing and just being very structured with how you get things done, having a way for tracking your tasks, keeping track of the request or task that you give or delegate to other people. It's very important that you find a system that works for you. So if you have a to-do list, whether it's on Outlook, on Microsoft, or if it's just your regular pen and paper, each day you have your tasks, whatever that is, find a system, a way of tracking all of that, because it will save you a ton. Many times, especially if you're going into meetings back to back and you're losing track of, in that meeting you know that you're supposed to, that's your action item, in the other meeting that's your action item. But if you're not keeping track of all of that and figuring out what are the timelines for all of this, you're going to lose track of things, you're going to get confused and overwhelmed, and it might just feel like a lot. Okay, so save yourself some heartache and just stress by finding a system. If you need a planner, go get a planner, so that if you have a meeting 2 weeks from now, you put it down in your planner. I would highly recommend, in this day and age, maybe just finding something that's digital that you can set a reminder for yourself, and so you're not constantly having to go check a manual planner, for example, and your phone can remind you. You can set like a 2-day reminder, a 1-week reminder, whatever that is, but make sure that you are finding a way to organize yourself. Find a way for finding a system or a device, or a system essentially, that can help you be more organized with your time and with priorities. The 10th thing I should have done going into management was getting some form of professional help. And with that, I mean things with doing certain types of assessments and knowing what your leadership style is, what your personality type is, and how that relates to your work environment and how you project yourself to people, your communication style, finding ways of knowing how to talk to your team, and get them to work on certain things, like just essentially knowing who you are as an individual and what that looks like within a leadership capacity. I felt like now, now that I know, I've taken, different types of training in my lifetime or in my career life, especially since going into management. Now I know certain things. I know what my strengths are. I know what my assets are in how I work with people, but I also know the areas that I am not so great at, and being more aware and mindful of it, and finding creative ways to still, get the job done and connect with the people around me and just have a good time at work, because we do spend a lot of time at work. So you want to make sure that you're in the right state of mind. You know how to conduct yourself. You know how to influence change, positively in your work environment. But that begins with getting to know you first. Okay, so I wish I did that. I wish I paid more attention to that. I think I knew about it, but I just didn't take it seriously or didn't see the value in it at the time. But there's a lot of value in getting that professional help, knowing what your triggers are, and being more aware of how to control that in a leadership capacity. So that is all I have to say on this episode. Those are the 10 things, and I know there's a lot more, but I'll say these are the 10 things that come to the top of mind that I wish I knew more of. I wish someone had told me about it. I wish I received training on it, going in, because many times we get into positions by default of our technical skills, right? Not because, like, leadership is a interesting but very unique playground on its own, and you need to kind of know what the secrets are, what the secret doors are, or who are the key players in this place, and knowing how to leverage relationships and partnerships, and network with people. But yeah, there's just so many aspects to it. But I'm glad I'm in a better position. I'm glad that I didn't fall flat on my face and just, yeah, die from everything or all of the things that were thrown at me. I have evolved in many ways. I am still growing and evolving. But for you who is just starting out, please pay attention to you. Start being more aware of how you carry yourselves, how you speak to people, because even if you have the best intentions, they say that people connect with the person before they connect to the vision, right? If you're that person that people don't want to be around, or you're just overbearing as a leader and being a helicopter leader. And if you haven't seen that episode, I would encourage you to go see that episode on what a helicopter leader looks like, so you kind of start paying attention to yourself as well. But if you're that person who is just overbearing and is very micromanagey and tells people what to do, how to do, like you're limiting creativity and growth in your work environment. So I really encourage you to take some time out to really take stock, do an internal audit of yourself, get professional help if you can, and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for listening. If you're not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, I'll say do so. If you really liked what you heard today, give this video a like, share your thoughts with me below. Are you just starting out? What does that look like for you? What are the fears you're currently experiencing right now? And ask your questions, and I would try to answer your questions as well. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye for now.